Greetings, fellow travelers. Eugene and Chris at your service, and we proudly present Seattle Travel Points Club, your ultimate passport to optimizing every aspect of your travel escapades. So, Chris, let's dive right into it. It's been a while since we chatted, and I want to hear all about your European trip. Let's start with which European country did you visit on your trip, and which one was your favorite?
Yeah, so we visited Netherlands, so more particularly Amsterdam, France, and Switzerland, and we we flew into Amsterdam and then flew back out of Paris. So we kind of did a big loop. We went from Netherlands to France, did a big loop in France, went to Switzerland, and then flew back out of Paris.
Nice.
Favorite is probably, well, it's definitely France. I mean, I speak French. I lived there for a year when I was a kid. And so I really love the country and the people. So that's definitely my favorite place.
It's nice. My wife has been trying to pick up a little French since we've been there 3 times and
But yeah.
been doing a little Duolingo. So she does that every day.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, it's awesome. It's a great language. And it just came, I mean, the more time you spend on it too, it makes such a difference.
I definitely cannot speak French, though. It's I'll let my wife order the food for us.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Right.
cool. So tell me, how did you plan and book your trip using travel points, and any tips to those looking to do the same?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I learned about traveling with miles and points. I don't know. Now it's probably been when I first started learning about it, was probably a couple of years ago, and I just, I got slightly obsessed with it just because it sounded so cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, it's really doable. I mean, for most people, it takes some financial discipline. When it comes to credit cards, you got to be willing to be someone who pays credit card balances off every month. You can't really, you know, screw around with that because you end up getting hit with interest and, all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. And this is really about being disciplined on that piece of it. And, I tell people like, I'm not a super organized person, but I can do this. I can make this work. And so I kind of feel like if I can do it, just about anyone can do it. And plus, there are so many resources out there for people just to get started. I mean, there are a huge number of sites and people blogging and just lots of great, including what we're doing now. I mean, it's just lots of opportunities to learn about how to do it and some of the details around how to get started.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
Cool.
you really just have to jump in. I would say that's my biggest tip is for people just to get started, like figure out credit card or two to open, start earning sign up bonuses, and then start looking at travel options. And yeah, anyway, I mean there are a number of things to do, and you might as well just get started.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the best experiences that you had using the travel points during your Europe trip?
Best experiences. Well, I think, so we use points mostly for flights. And so, I basically flew our family of six. I have four mostly grown children, one who's still at home. And so I flew our full family of six uh, round trip to Europe, just using miles and points. I mean, there are some fee, like fees and surcharges that you end up
Yeah.
paying with cash, but I mean that's kind of included on every ticket, whether you're paying, whether you're paying cash or whether you're using points and miles. But yeah, so we use miles and points to pay for all six of us, and that included my wife and I flying business class, which was just amazing. I
Nice.
mean, it was by far the best trip of our lives so far. So
Wow.
yeah, so I've just really been focusing on that flight piece. Yeah, so it was amazing.
Did you encounter any challenges or surprises while redeeming those travel points for any of your travels?
Surprises, yeah. I mean, I did encounter one. So on our way home, the flight was actually canceled. So we were supposed to fly home, I think it was like a Friday, and they only had award seats. So, as people find out about this process, you'll see that there's people call it like award travel versus, kind of like regular cash tickets. Um, so one thing that I learned through that experience was that if you're flying on award seats or seats that you've booked with points and miles, when they're and I don't know if this is with every airline or just with with the way that we were traveling, but when they're booking you on like a replacement seat or trying to find you seats on a next flight, they use award. They have to put you in an award seat versus a seat that you would typically pay cash for. So it becomes a little bit more limited. And so in this case, they could only get us on a flight like a couple days later, which, I mean, worked out fine for us. But I think one thing to learn, or one big piece of flying award flights is the more you can be a little bit flexible, the better the experience will be and the more opportunities you have to like use award travel.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Um, how did your travel points impact your overall travel budget and expenses during your trip?
Well, I mean, man, it saved us so much money. It was, if you just think of the flights in general, I
Yeah.
mean, and particularly the business class seats. I mean, I was looking at business class seats on this same flight, and it ranged, of course, by how early you booked it. But I mean, we're talking about like a one-way ticket for three to four or $5,000 for a one-way business class ticket, and we were able to pay for those for about um, I think the way there cost us about 50,000 miles,
Mhm.
plus a couple $100. So you're talking about, a $5,000 ticket that you got for just miles and points from, a sign up bonus on a credit card. So, and you start to learn about, the more you learn about like redemption rates for miles and how to search for tickets. I mean, some people are paying, I don't know, like 1 million miles for a business class ticket. People who are
Yeah.
just, accumulating tickets over their or accumulating miles over their lifetime. Um, but if you know what you're looking for and know how to search for those things, you can find tickets like that. A business class one-way ticket for 50,000 miles. You can find, you can frequently find tickets to business or tickets to Europe that are economy for like 20,000 miles one way, and that's pretty common.
Yeah, and that's like the baseline that I look for as well
Yeah,
when going to anywhere in Europe, from Seattle to Europe is like 20,000. That's kind
20,000.
of
Yeah,
like the lowest, like
yeah,
that's where I start out with,
that's like a
where
good
I
sweet
think is
spot.
like a
Yeah,
good value, right?
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
when you're
Very,
talking like if you get a 60,000, if you're getting a 60,000 mile sign up bonus or 60,000 point sign up bonus, then and that's pretty common, 60 to 100,000 miles
yeah.
for a sign up bonus. That's a lot of flying for, for you using a credit card for what you would normally, use
Yeah.
a credit card for. Just, you're going to have these expenses anyway. You might as well be using them on a credit card that you're getting a huge sign up bonus for.
Yeah, and you can transfer it to like partners like Air France, right? Is one that you
Exactly.
guys use, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we
Yeah,
used Air France this time. Yeah.
yeah, I had like so many friends that like been accumulating like hundreds of thousands of miles of points on Alaska Airlines or Delta or something, or even just like their sign up bonus. Let's just say they had like 300,000 on Amex and they would book directly
Yeah.
on the Amex site. That would they forget that
Exactly.
they could transfer their 500,000 or 50,000 points over to Air France to book that trip instead of like booking it directly on those sites for like what you're saying like 200,000 points usually is what something like the same ticket that you got.
Exactly. Yeah. Easily. Right. If not more. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's a great way to do it.
Yeah. So, were there any specific loyalty programs or credit cards that you found most valuable for earning travel points?
Yeah. There are a lot of good there's a lot, I would say a lot of good guidance out there of where to start when you're looking at loyalty programs or credit cards that you want to start out with. A lot of people recommend doing the Chase cards first because they have you learn more about all this. I mean, there's so much information out there, and if you like it, if you have fun with it, I think it's amazing. You can learn all this great stuff. But a lot of people recommend starting with chase cards because they have this rule called the 524 rule, meaning,
Yeah.
um, meaning that you can only have opened up 5 credit cards in the last 24 months if you want to qualify for one of the chase cards or get one of the chase cards. So, if let's say you've opened up 5 Amex cards, for instance, and then you go to open up a chase card, they won't allow you to open it up because you've already opened up 5 credit cards. So that's why I think a lot of people will say, okay, start with the chase cards and then move on to other things. But, it just totally depends. Like I started with, um, back in the day, I started with like a Capital One card, I think, because I was really interested in the fact that for every dollar you spent, you got 2 miles rather than just 1 mile.
Yeah.
And then, of course, but with many cards, it'll be like you get 5 times or 5 points for every mile or for every dollar that you spend on entertainment or on gas or on groceries or so
Yeah.
it just totally depends on what how you're spending your money, what you're most interested in, and yeah, it'll totally depend. I really like I do like chase cards, but I also really love some of the benefits I get with Amex cards,
Yeah.
and then Capital One. Capital One cards have been really good too. So
You end up doing the Amex Lounge in SeaTac on this trip?
no, we didn't on this. Actually, no, that's not true. My boys did because they have Amex. They have Amex cards through us. I mean, we have to pay. It's a pretty nominal fee just to have two or three. Actually, you get for a nominal fee, you get 3 additional people added to
Yeah.
your Amex cards, and so they get to use the lounges.
Yeah.
So kind of spoiled kids, but they actually get to use the lounges on their own
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah. Did you use travel points for flights, accommodations, or other travel related expenses?
We did it all for flights and
Okay,
in
sorry.
this case. Yeah, so this time it was just the 6 flights there and back. Um, I didn't really use it for accommodations this time.
Mm.
More so because like we were doing some stuff where mostly we stayed in bed and breakfast and used Airbnb. So we used Airbnb, also stayed in um just kind of like normal bed and breakfast accommodations, which were super cheap in this case. Like in France, you can find really great bed and breakfast for really, really a really, really good price. So, in this case, I wasn't using any points for hotels, but that's something I really want to learn more about
Yeah.
and do in the future.
Yeah. We'll have some more podcasts or video
For sure.
vlogs
Yeah.
about that on
Oh
those.
my gosh. Yeah. Totally.
Which credit card did you end up using for like some of those Airbnb purchases that you guys did for
For
your hotel?
Airbnb, I think I use my Capital One
Okay,
card for
so you can get the
Airbnb.
2x. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just learned that I just recently got that Chase Sapphire Bird, and I just found out that you can actually use that on like Expedia, and you still get 2x on that one too. So I was
Oh,
like, oh, that's
really?
pretty cool. So yeah, if you're like trying to build up some points on the Chase
Yeah.
portal, the ultimate rewards, you can still get 2x on like Expedia or booking on at hotel directly at hotels directly and stuff to get the
Oh
2x.
yeah. Well, and that's
Yeah.
smart to do. I mean, and that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about with which credit cards to get first and which ones to use for which expenses because yeah, you just learn things as you go along like you're saying. I mean, you can use it for to get two times the miles for every dollar spent or 5 sometimes 10 times the miles for different expenses. So you just I think people want to be really aware of, and that's why like actually something that you taught me was like just keeping track in a spreadsheet of like the different cards that you have and then all of the different benefits associated with that card just to keep it fresh in your mind. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm buying groceries, I should remember to use this card. I mean, some people don't do that,
Yeah.
because you don't have to. I mean, because honestly, like the majority of your points, maybe not the majority, but a lot of your points will come from the sign up bonus. So that's like what's critical.
Hmm.
And then after that, yeah, you want to pay attention to it, but anyway, yeah, it's fun. It's a fun game to play.
Yeah. Well, can you share some practical advice for some of the travelers who want to start using travel points to fund their own European adventure?
Oh yeah, for sure. You definitely want to start with looking at where you want to go. So, do you want to go to Europe? Do you want to go to Asia? Where in Asia? Do you want to go to Southeast Asia? Do you want to go to Australia? Just kind of like where in general you want to go. And then you want to look at which credit card. Well, then you want to look at flights. So which airlines fly to those places? You can, use Google Flights or, whatever the easiest way is to kind of look at all the different airlines that fly to those areas,
Yeah.
and then start looking at the credit cards that have miles or points that will transfer that you can transfer to those programs. So, I know that's a lot, but that's kind of how you start. And each of those things has, um, a bunch of things to learn about it. Like, not the flights part. You can figure out pretty easily where which airlines are going to fly to the destination that you want to go to. But after that, like determining the card that you want to open because of what sign up bonus it has, because of which, the points that you're going to be able to transfer to those uh, award programs with the different airlines. That gets a little more complex, but it's not rocket science. I mean, you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
figure that stuff out, and there's a lot to learn, and you can learn stuff through our blog, just through talking to us individually, or from different sites and information that's out there. It's a lot of fun
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Were there any travel point related strategies you used to maximize the value of your rewards during this trip?
um well, like I was saying, I mean, for me, I'm really trying to get the best, and which is kind of why I didn't use it for accommodations, because I'm trying to get the best value as possible in all of the
Yeah.
things I'm doing. So like I'm trying to get, the cheapest hotel or cheapest accommodations, the best deal on flights, best opportunities for cheap food or inexpensive food. But so for this flight, because I feel like I'm getting pretty good at doing the flight redemptions, it was
Mm.
only um on flights. And so I would say, the strategies would be like to try and be flexible in terms of schedule, like I was saying, like schedules and airlines that you're willing to fly.
Yeah.
And um, you also can be a little bit like unorthodox in terms of um, not necessarily flying back from the same airport that you fly
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
Booking, you learn really quickly to book one-way tickets rather than return flights, because in a lot of cases it's just going to be a better way to go, because it's easier to find redemption flights sometimes on a one-way ticket.
Do they call what is that word that they call that? Like when they're flying from Seattle, they're based out of Seattle, but they want to fly out of like New York,
Oh,
to get a better value.
oh yeah. To do the repositioning.
Revisit. That's
Um,
right.
yeah, so like repositioning, if you're willing to, maybe pay cash for a flight to Detroit, and then because that you can get a flight for, I don't know, 20,000 miles to
Yeah.
a country that when you're looking at either the cash price, or like for us, maybe it's a flight that to get from Seattle to a particular destination, it's going to cost 50,000 miles, but for some reason you can find a flight out of Detroit that's 20,000 miles. You're willing to pay the extra, $200 to get to Detroit and then fly out of Detroit rather than Seattle. That kind of
Yeah.
stuff is, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did for our trip to Florence, where we repositioned from New York because the flights out of there were only 15,000 versus like
Yeah.
60,000 from Seattle or something.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
what about the rental car when you guys were there? And where did you do the rental cars from? Which country?
We did the rental car out of France, so out of Paris, and in this
Yeah.
case, um, I actually ended up renting the car. So we took the train from Amsterdam to Paris, stayed in Paris for a few days, and then rented the car. And so I went out to the airport from downtown Paris to get the car. And then because one of the reasons I did that was because we were going to fly out of Paris also. And so because we returned the car to the Paris airport, saved, a fair bit of money just by returning the car to the same place that I picked it up. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
like I was saying, I mean, I try and get the best deal on pretty much everything that I can, but at the same time, you kind of have to find a good balance. That's what I would recommend is, finding a good balance between the experiences that you want to have and then the amount of money that you want to save. Because, yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know, like hypothetically, let's say that returning the car to the same place I picked it up only saved me like a couple $100. I don't know that that's
Yeah.
worth it to actually, plan my trip around that. But so it's this balance of really getting the experiences that you want and then saving as much money as you can.
Cool. Well, that's all that we have, all the time we have for today. Thanks for sharing
Awesome.
your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do more of this in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.